We are now officially halfway through 2019, and these first 6 months have been pretty dang epic. We've gotten some big surprises, random gaming reveals, and some secret launches that managed to completely blow our minds. But I want to actually do something a little bit different today. What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is Top 10 Thursday. For this week, what I wanted to do is really try and highlight the things that I believe thus far have been the best of the best. Now, some of this stuff you may not have tried, some of the stuff you may not have heard of, but the goal is to really try and highlight the stuff that I've played, that I've beaten, that I've absolutely loved on my picks of the top 10 best games of 2019 so far. Number 10. The Division 2. If I had to pick a random publisher that I feel like I have a lot of trouble with just over the course of the last couple of years, it's definitely Ubisoft. A lot of Ubisoft games to me just don't feel really inspired or original, but I will say that they're definitely a company that understands how to improve upon their mistakes. While the first Division game eventually got good, this sequel immediately drops you into a completely different and really fleshed out experience. We get to wander through the destroyed streets of Washington, D.C., enjoy some really good combat, and of course, enjoy a huge, totally online experience that could not be replicated by anything else. It blew me away from start to finish, and I'm actually kind of shocked that I'm even talking about it on a list of the best games of the year. Number 9. Mortal Kombat 11. One of the weirdest aspects of modern gaming is definitely got to be the fact that we've seen so many sequels and reboots of really classic franchises. It seems like if it managed to be completely loved in the 90s, it's probably coming back. But I really enjoy the stuff that's going on over at NetherRealms because it seems like they're trying to essentially reinvent concepts. Mortal Kombat 11 is an excellent fighter that manages to have a big roster, some really cool fighters, and it has a lot of stuff in it that makes just the technical aspects of getting good combos and unleashing another fatality feel important. That's something that may sound minor, but when it comes to just the pure flawless aspect of what makes a brawler great, this one is truly one to go into the record books. Number 8. A Plague Tale Innocence. There's something so special and unique about those really concise, shorter experiences. The games that aren't necessarily 100 hours long, but still manage to touch your heart. A Plague Tale Innocence really hit a chord with me because it's something that manages to be different and yet completely enthralling in its short time period. This is a game that takes place in the past, sort of like in the Inquisition, and we're trying to essentially escape a bunch of evil armies while just trying to creep away through a very dangerous forest. So while this looks mechanically very basic and visually very advanced, this is a game that really manages to just be scary in a way that I haven't seen anybody else try. You're scared to let your little brother be captured, and really, at the end of the day, you're afraid to not finish this story. Number 7. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. This Kickstarter project was hyped up for years as being essentially the spiritual sequel to Castlevania, and now that it's finally here, it's pretty funny just how much it's managing to blow everybody's minds. I mean, fans thought it would be good, some of the backers thought it might be magnificent, but this thing is just fantastic. Genuinely, I love every single one of the 100 weapons, I love all the hidden magic, and I love just those times where you break down a random wall and get another power-up. It is true Castlevania love distilled under a different title, and honestly, it's one of those games that makes me happy that I beat it, and simultaneously, it just makes me eternally hyped for the fact that we may get eventually a Bloodstained 2. Number 6. Metro Exodus. Of all the games I'm including in this video, I have a feeling that this one is probably the most overlooked. It's sort of released in a crowded part of 2019, and even I myself actually forgot about it. My friend Rax the Great, who's a really good YouTuber, basically pushed me into buying it, saying, "DreamcastGuy, I promise it is worth the price." And I'm glad he did, because this is a shooter that is just so freaking tight. Every part of it is comprised in a way that just makes sense. When it needs to be, it manages to have a claustrophobic sense to it, and then when it opens up, you really get a chance to explore this frozen, diseased tundra in an all-new way. If you haven't played these before, these games, the Metro, they really kind of take place in this alternate universe where everybody's been bombed to heck, and we fast forward to the future, and now, basically, the only people that have managed to live through this nuclear apocalypse were the people down in the subway system at the time. It creates this nice sense of super post-apocalyptic tension. You feel like everybody is just so long dead that the very best you can hope for is to at least get a nice clean death. Number 5. Rage 2. There are times when I get really hyper-focused, so I sit down to beat a game and try and record a bunch of footage the way I can do a giant review, and when it's all done being edited and uploaded, I like to try and look around the internet to see what other reviewers thought of it, right? I mean, that makes sense. It's kind of fun to see what else other people love or hate, and so this is one of those weird projects that for some reason I completely got obsessed with, and a lot of other reviewers kind of disliked, which is weird to me because Rage 2 is crazy epic. I mean, seriously, it's so nice to have a game that just gives you constantly cool unlocks, basically a freaking magic system so you can just snap people's clothes off or supercharge people into freaking silly putty, or if you want to be really crazy, you can do stuff like just start stealing cars and compete in tournaments and game shows. Rage 2 is one of those games that's silly and weird, and honestly, it's just so good at being itself. It's not trying to replicate anybody else's charm, it's crafting its own, and for that, I really loved it from start to finish. Number 4. Devil May Cry 5. Occasionally, there are some game series out there that have a really die-hard cult following but never get a mainstream appeal, which is a little bit of a shame. Stuff where they manage to sell enough copies to stay in business, but they never become super popular. And I've always felt like, unfortunately, Devil May Cry is one of these. Yes, of course, they move enough units to stay in business, but for the most part, this is not Call of Duty. But here we finally have a game that, in my opinion, really managed to break out. It managed to get those eyeballs that it deserves. DMC5 does so much correctly, from having multiple main heroes that all play totally different and totally fun in their own unique ways. Eccentric boss fights that are just so bright and colorful and confusing in a good way, and even additional challenge modes that are unlocked after you beat it, to make it where this is one of those games that you just want to run through again and again and again, to try and improve yourself, to try and improve your combos, to try and improve your rating, until eventually you're either the very best DMC player or somebody who can't even make it past the first boss. It's rewarding in a way that I just got so into, and I'm glad that it's really kind of moving units because this team absolutely deserves every bit of success. Number 3. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now, I will fully admit that I am a huge, blind fanboy for survival horror. I like this genre so much because it's so cool to see things that just manage to make it scary to keep playing. Your hands can be trembling, you can be literally counting the bullets in your clip as some sort of awful beast stalks towards you. That is such a freaking sharp and intense feeling that I absolutely love. And this game does it better than any other modern horror game ever has. While on the surface, this may appear to just be a beat-for-beat remake of the original RE2, to me it feels different. They managed to tweak and change a lot about it, despite just graphically, so it feels like something that just completely stands on its own. The added story elements, the extra monsters, the freaking boss fights that are just so big and intense. This is a new game, and something that I have now beaten over 10 times this year. Just to try and get every unlockable, I've gone through it multiple times, and each freaking run is just such a blast. Number 2. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It really seems to me like there's one aspect of gaming that very few studios manage to get right, which is the idea of difficulty. Making something that's hard enough that it's going to challenge you, but simultaneously not making it unfair. I mean, if we're really being honest, the one studio that's managed to completely master it is the people over at From Software. They literally created Dark Souls out of thin air, and here we are several projects later, freaking playing a game that takes place in Japan and just got so many demons. This is an entirely new universe with a fresh coat of paint and fresh mechanics and so many aspects of it that are just so new but manage to echo its roots. This is, in a way, just basically Dark Souls 4, but what makes it the best is that I feel like it rewards aggression in a way that hard games normally don't. Managing to kill people gives you extra energy, but if you make a mistake and die, you get one extra life. So basically the way this works is, if you end up getting freaking smashed by a giant hammer or steamrolled by a huge bull, you will die, and you can come back for one extra time. And if you manage to get enough kills, this will recharge your respawn meter. I like this mechanic of making us hungry for that next piece of activity, to try and slice the next throat or get the next sneak kill, all in an effort to make it where you can get a little bit further. But if you just get a little bit too hungry, you're gonna pay the price and end up back at the last checkpoint. It's such a nice balance of punishment and reward, and something that got me so invested in this newly built universe. And really, it's one of those things that still, to this day, I think is going to be very difficult to ever match. Number 1. Judgment. When it comes to really massive open world projects, I think that one of the most important parts of these games is making it so that they feel authentic. Don't just give me a random slice of some just pointless world, make me care. Make me believe that in some way this is realistic. And this is by far the most perfect aspect of Judgment. At the heart of this, we play as a detective who's trying to track down a serial killer in the red light district of Japan, which means that you're going to have to work together with some pretty shady individuals of the Yakuza and ex-lawyers who just don't like you and sit in courtrooms that's just so tense. But when you're not doing this, you're going to just be wandering the streets trying to find that next clue. And this is the opportunity to go into random bars and get a drink, or maybe just go get in some street fights, or maybe drone races, or maybe just go into an arcade and play some darts or pinball. The options in this game are nearly limitless. That seriously, if you could only purchase one game this entire year that I think really encapsulates what makes 2019 great, I would seriously suggest Judgment. It is good, it is great, and it is genuinely a masterpiece that manages to put open world gaming into a different light. And for that reason, I of course have to award it as my pick as the best game of this year so far. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. This was pretty hard to make. There were like 10 things that almost made the list, just because, honestly, it has been a fun year. It hasn't been the best, but there has been some real gems that have managed to sneak out. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.